Hi everyone, it's Sam here at ModelChili Scale Models, and yes, it's finally time to do Commander Gree using Bandai's 1/12 scale Clone Trooper kit, and this is something that I've wanted to do for such a long time. Way back when I first saw Easy Company Gaming and Collectibles video on his custom Gree figure, which kind of inspired me to start customizing all these clone figures. So I know he's wanted credit for that for ages, and there it is. So I'll put a link to his channel or a link to that video so you can check that out. But one of the reasons I've been putting it off for so long is just because it looks kind of complicated. You know, it's not something you can just jump in and start painting up without really thinking about what you're doing first. And so what I've done is I've found a really nice reference on the internet. This is a sideshow figure reference, so it's not going to be 100% to the movie, but I'll check out some screen caps. But this is a good just overall guide to his camo and his different coloured sections. And so there's I can break it down into several main areas really. There's just the shin and the boots, which will be a very dark greyish black. And then the thighs and the forearms and the lower body would just be like a pale green, and then camoed with brush paint. And the belt as well probably. And then the chest and the top arm, or the biceps and the shoulders, a really nice dark green with a bit of a pattern in the middle. And then silver and light grey for the helmet with another green accent down the middle. And so what I'm going to do is cut to the chase and just start with the painting really. I want to keep this as brief but as accessible as possible, so I'll construct all the main sections first. I've already done a video on building the Clone Trooper, so I'll put a link to that up in the corner if you want to check out the contents of the box and all of those bits and pieces. But for this build I'll construct all the legs and all the body glove pieces first, and then just get stuck into the painting. Okay, so I'm just going to start out simple and work my way up by painting the shins and the boots, just using a basic black colour, so in this case Vallejo Model Air 057 black. Now for the black body glove, I'm actually going to paint it with this black grey. Just brush paint it on, and then I'm going to give it a black wash, just to hopefully give it a nice patchy sort of fabricy look. Now for the green sections of the thighs and forearms, I'm just using Vallejo's pale green 71095. For the silver sections of the helmet, I'm just using basic aluminium. So before I paint the light grey sections of the helmet, I just thought I'd point out that on Commander Gree it's a bit hard to see because it's all white, but these little grill sections, or like gill slots, on Commander Gree they're moved to the back of the helmet, annoyingly. So because Bandai has moulded these in instead of just provided a decal, I'm going to have to fill these in and then put the decal at the back. And so what I'm going to use for that is this Vallejo plastic putty, which is acrylic based and is white, so it just kind of blends in nicely under the paint. I'm just going to put a little bit on, and then smear it in, and then once that starts to set I can just wipe away the excess, and hopefully it'll leave it in the recessed areas. If not, I'll just keep applying it. And for the light grey paint, I'm using Vallejo's white grey. Okay, so after a lot of experimenting, I finally settled on a green for the chest and the upper arms and shoulders, just using Vallejo's Game Colour dark green. And it took me about a good 20 minutes in the model shop trying to find a green that would match according to the reference photos. I mean, there's a lot of different greens, it's unbelievable. But I had to do a few layers just to tone down the brightness because of the white plastic showing through. And I eventually got to a shade that I liked, and it's come out a bit patchy and splotchy in areas on there just because this is brush paint, paint for brush painting, so I had to thin it down for the airbrush, and my mix wasn't quite right and it was just kind of splurting out of the airbrush a little bit. So, but most of this is going to be covered up. I only need the middle section for the green. The corners are going to be either very dark grey or black, and for the back chest, a lot of the figures and toys have it kind of a greenish brown, but I've been poring over screenshots of Commander Gree in Revenge of the Sith, and it looks very blackish greenish, very dark, so I've gone for Vallejo Game Air dark green. I mean, it's the same colour as that, but obviously they're completely different, even though they're called the same thing. So yeah, so this is specifically for the airbrush, so I didn't need to thin that, and that's just a much darker, very deep green for the back there, and that's going to be sort of camouflaged up as well, so a lot of that base layer will be hidden. And so what I'm going to do now is mask off the pattern for the chest and then spray the sides. Again, I mean, different reference photos show different things, like a lot of the figures and the sideshow and the Black Series. Black Series has a very blackish green, and sideshow has a kind of a greenish brown on the sides. So again, going back to screenshots and references, I'm going to lean towards the blackish green for that section, and then we'll see how we go. Alright, so I just decided to go for black in the end, and I'll do a bit of a weathering to add some green patches and weathering in there later on. For the shoulders, I'm just adding the Vallejo pale green, just for a bit of fading, and once it starts to set I blended it in a bit more with the brush. And then adding aluminium chipping along all the corners of Gree's armour. And for the green sections of his helmet, I started out with a base coat of the pale green, and then once that was dry I dabbed on the darker green for a mottled effect, and that also helps to hide a lot of the brush strokes. And here I'm using Vallejo Model Color Buff, and just dabbing it on with the brush. And again for the chest armour I'm just using the pale green, just dry brushing it on, just to create a bit of wear and weathering, and then blended it in later on when it was starting to dry. And this piece is for Commander Gree's second thermal detonator canister. He actually has 2 of them. And this piece was from a Stormtrooper kit that I specifically bought for spare parts. So that came in handy. It is slightly bigger than the clone version, but it was close enough for me. And once the first layer of camo was down, I was just toning it down a little bit by dabbing on the base colour pale green over the top. And for the belt pieces I dabbed on a bit of Russian green, just for a bit of colour variation and to make them a little bit darker. And this brown was a mix of 1 part Vallejo Model Air German red brown to 3 parts Vallejo Model Air Russian green, just to tone down the redness of the brown. Right, so that's all the camouflage and detail work done. And as you saw there, I just, with the camouflage, I just built up various layers, patchy layers. And then finally I just did a dab of the base coat over the top again, just to help it blend in a little bit more and tone it down just a little bit. So I'm quite happy with how that's come out. And for the helmet, the grill pieces at the back there, that was just the decal for the Phase 1 Clone Trooper helmet. That goes on the grill pieces on the side, so that was a handy substitute for Gree there for the grills at the back. I think there's supposed to be a little bit, a few more slots in there, but I think that'll do. And there's the thermal detonator canister glued to his back, well, the extra one there. And so what I'd normally do now for as I've done for the previous Clone Troopers, is give everything another gloss coat, and then do a wash and some weathering, and then finish it with a semi-gloss coat. But Commander Gree, he's got different levels of shininess, like his shins and his boots and his silver pieces on his helmet are really shiny compared to the other pieces. So what I'm going to do now is just do a wash on certain parts. I don't think it needs much weathering. I think the camouflage kind of has added a lot of weathering, especially on the chest piece there. Looking at reference photos, I don't know if all of these patches is dirt or weathering or part of his camo. It's kind of hard to tell, but I've tried to recreate it as closely as possible. And a little bit of silver chipping in there. And so, yeah, I'm not going to do much weathering. I think I'm just going to do a wash. I've just got my usual light grey acrylic wash, and I'm just going to detail up some of these helmet pieces. So in here, and yeah, so I was saying that Gree has different levels of shininess. So what I'm going to do is, for the silver and black pieces, I'm going to do a final gloss coat, and then for everything else I'm going to do a semi-gloss coat, just so he's got a bit of variation in reflections of his armour. And now just for a tiny bit of Tamiya Weathering Master, the mud pigment, just for the helmet area. And also on the boots. Right, well I've had to pull them apart again because now I have to add Gree's suspenders that go over the chest and the shoulders. So I have to scratch build those. And I was playing around with the idea of using this leather strip, these leather strips. That was the wrong colour, and it's also way too thick. Once it goes over his shoulders, there's not really much room for the head. And then I went to a lighter, wider one, but again it's too thick and it just looks just kind of toyish once it's on. But it would have been nice to keep the flexibility, but yep, so those didn't work. And then I went to plastic styrene strips that you can just buy in packs. But this is too it's not flexible enough, and once you bend it too much it just snaps. But that could have possibly been glued before I painted it to the plastic. But then I would have had to have constructed this whole thing and then painted it, and that would have been too difficult, so scratched that idea. So then I just resorted to the usual good old masking tape. And so what I've done is I've laid it out on this plastic card and then painted it the appropriate colour. That's for the main strap, and then the shoulder cover things that go over the top. And so I've laid it on this plastic card so it's retained its stickiness, so when I peel this off it can stick to the kit and conform to all the armour lines and stuff. And yeah, so what I'm going to do is wrap it around and then anchor it under the chest piece. I'm not sure if it's supposed to go all the way down to the belt. It's kind of hard to see in pictures. But if I did, then I probably would have lost a lot of the articulation around here, because I might have risked snapping it or ruining the actual strap. So anchoring it to the chest piece allows me to keep this articulation, which I think I would prefer. For the comm panel at the back, what I've done is bought a pack of sheet styrene. This is 1/2 mm thick, and then cut out a rectangle for the right dimensions, and then sanded down some of this raised detail so it fits nice and snug. And then just using the same styrene, I just cut out more little strips to build up some detail. And the piping is from a pack of styrene rods. These are 0.75 millimeters thick. And then sanded to the top flat so it's perpendicular to the back, and then drilled a hole in the top using a pin vise so the antenna bit can just slot in there using the same rod. So that fits in quite nicely. So now I just need to paint that up, and I'll probably just super glue that onto the back. And for the thigh pouch holster thingy, just use a similar technique, but this time using styrene bars. Then just measured it by eyeball, cut out a section, and then just sanded it down to the rough shape, and sanded out a groove for the pouch flap. And the little round button was just layers of stickers that come with the kit. I think they were stickers for these bits here. They just put them on top of each other, and it's just made a nice little round button. And so I'll probably super glue that as well to the side there, and then use the same technique I did for the suspenders for the strap that goes around his thigh. And once that's done and I've painted up the blasters, then I'm finally done. Whew, alright, so there he is, finally completed. And I sound relieved because I actually am quite relieved that this is finally done. It was really drawing out for a while towards the end, just getting some of the final details right. Like the suspenders, I did it and redid those so many different times, just getting the colours and the thickness and the alignment right. And I knew this was going to be a complex build. I knew there was going to be a lot of painting and a lot of masking and a lot of scratch building and a lot of weathering. But as the build went on, it was just drawing out and just getting the little details right, like the alignment of these lines on his helmet, and poring over fuzzy screenshots of Commander Gree, and just getting some of these, like the brown on this camouflage right, experimenting with loads of different paints to get that colour, to get a colour I was satisfied with. It just went on and on and on. And doing things and redoing things so many different times, like just repaints of repaints, and yeah. But don't get me wrong, it's been fun. I'm really happy with how it's come out. It looks like Commander Gree, so that'll do me. I mean, I can sit here and look at all the inaccuracies or things I would have done slightly different. But, you know, it's, as long as you've got something you want to change at the end of a model, you know, you're always motivated to keep going, because if you're just 100% perfect all the time, then what's the point, really? You know, that's my philosophy anyway. But yeah, I'm always keen to know what you guys think. If you've got any comments or feedback, feel free to leave a comment below. And if you've got any questions about any of the paints or techniques I've used, feel free to ask, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I just thought I'd finish up here with a nice family photo of all my previous clones, or Phase 2 clones at least. And as I've said many times before, these Bandai kits are just an absolute joy to build. You know, they fit together perfectly, and the amount of customizing you can do is just limitless, really. So yeah, if you haven't bought a Bandai clone by now, what are you waiting for? Just go out and buy one instantly. But anyway, I thought I would also take the opportunity to mention I've set up a Patreon page. Kind of soft launched it for a while now. I haven't really told anyone about it, because I'm really not sure what sort of perks or, you know, rewards I want to give out. But basically, I'm just thinking about the future. I'm thinking about building a ModelChili website where I can list all my builds and paints that I've used and tools and techniques and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, those sort of things cost money, and I've just set up the Patreon really just to gauge any interest out there, or if anyone is interested in supporting what I do. If not, you know, it's all good. I'll continue to release these videos on YouTube for no charge. So, I mean, that's what I intended to do right from the start, and that's what I'll continue to always do. I have mulled the idea of going advert free, but I know a lot of people use AdBlock anyway, so it's probably not much point in that. But yeah, so I'll put a link up to my Patreon page, and you can swing by and have a look. I have experimented with Patreon-only posts, and have toyed with the idea of releasing videos a day early for my Patreon supporters. But I'm not sure if that sounds like a good thing or a bad thing, or if people feel like they're being cheated. I'm really not sure. So basically, all I'm asking is just feedback and ideas, really. And yeah, we'll see where we go from there. And so what I'm going to do to end up this video is do a photo slideshow, because I think Gree really deserves one. I think he looks really awesome, and I'll put him in a few poses. And as always, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the build, and until next time, take care.